All right, so today our readings include the tail end readings for federalism and the new readings for civil liberties. In the last readings for federalism, did you guys notice a theme among those readings? Besides being connected to federalism.
It had to do a lot with the causal effect of what did the states do in order for the federal government to take over. So I kind of picked up like the actions the states did caused the federal government to take over.
Yes, so basically it's talking about balances of power between the state government and the federal government. And that kind of echoes to the game that we played on Wednesday as far as the power play, when we were advocating for the states and the states to gain more powers. So, did you all read the Enduring Debate article about a firearm store being placed near a school? I'm pretty sure it's what Okay. So how about we just deal with this question? So here, let me share the question, so share the screen so you can see what question I'm looking at. That would be useful. So the question for those readings is something that we can kind of use just to talk about. Do you think it's a good idea to have federal law banning firearms near schools, or do you think this is a matter better handled by the states? So let's just talk about that. Offer up any opinions. Okay, so
I'm sorry.
No, go, Elizabeth.
Well, you know how you said like for them to ban the firearm stores, right? So it'll be like gun shops and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And just people carrying firearms.
Well, I mean, from like all the school shootings that have been happening over the years, I think they should.
Should it be federal law or should it be handled by the states? Do you think there should be one overarching law?
I think the federal law, since like it's been happening everywhere.
Yeah.
It should just be like for everyone, not just like, oh, in this state they only do school shootings, or oh, we just want to prevent it here, like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, what do you get, both Betty and Camille, you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, me too. Just because it's a serious matter. I mean, something like that should be taken up by something. I see the federal government as more powerful than the state, in my opinion. So some things so delicate like firearms and fire shops like that should be taken up as a unanimous consent from one power, because you don't mess around with stuff like that, especially not around schools.
Yeah, and I mean, another example that kind of was an old example that we used was, do you think it's a good idea to have federal law to allow gay marriage, or do you think it should be a matter left up to the states? And so that one got a little bit more controversy, because some people are like, oh yeah, a state should be able to decide because it's based on their moral values and stuff like that. But really, it's something that affects all of the states in the same way, so it should be treated the same in the same manner. Yeah, okay. So we went over that. And so in this, the United States of America, what was the point? What was the point that these two authors were making? The United States of America.
It's basically was the same, almost the same. Well, a little bit more the same thing. The balances of government, mainly. Basically, what it referred to like the tug of war. It was just back and forth, back and forth of who should have who should make decisions, what decisions should fall under state or what should fall under federal. I think that's the way I viewed it.
Yeah, and so did they say who is winning currently and why?
It talks about, I'm kind of skipping very much of it, but it talks about Medicaid. Is this someone? It was the same. Yeah, right? The United States of America.
Yeah.
States of America. So in that case, I would think of federal government.
And also you can kind of tell that by the title of the article, the United States, implying that there's only one central government and no regional government, which would be the states.
The federal government playing dirty. Either you do it this way or you're going to be basically screwed. They're going to cut your funds and stuff. Well, that's one way to do it. I mean, nothing's fair.
You better follow our rules or you're not going to get any good roads.
It's not going to be pretty. Huge penalty. Taxes and everything.
And oh, here's a good quote in this article. The common justification for federal overreach is that it allows for administrative convenience, but the Constitution doesn't exist for the convenience of the government. So it's just saying that often the federal government justifies overreaching the state's powers and stuff like that because, oh, it's more convenient this way.
But it's more convenient for them, isn't it?
It's much more convenient for the federal government than it is for the states. All right. Do you guys feel comfortable with this article? Okay. Let us move on to the American Prospect, the Devil and Devolution. And so, Beatrice had a question about as far as this article goes. Would you mind sharing your question, Betty?
My question was, how did the faith and credit affect the 1996 primaries? Because in the article it says California's primary in 1992. Actually, I'm sorry, 1992 had come too late to matter. Like, how did the faith and credit affect it for it to be late? Because it's talking about a lot of the primaries being late, and it was like a disaster, basically.
And I'm gonna open this up to anybody if they would like to respond to it. If any of you had an idea, but it's understandable if you don't. So I'm kind of reviewing the article. I admit I did not read it myself because I've read these articles multiple times and I have a general idea of them, but I sometimes get fuzzy about the specifics. But as far as this faith and credit section and having to do with primaries, they're saying that California's primary kind of didn't count compared to, as far as, okay, California's primary didn't really count because it didn't contribute to numbers of a candidate by the time that they got to California. Because California's primary is pretty late in the game. Because we are such a big state, and if we, let's say if we voted first, then there would already be a huge majority for one candidate or another. That's why in here it says that our we're kind of had come too late, because really what our opinion is of these candidates doesn't matter because the rest of the country has already decided. Like when the Democratic Party primary came to California, do you remember a couple months ago?
Yeah.
At that point, it had been pretty much decided that Hillary was going to win.
Yeah.
Because she gets those delegates. And the general 20 or more won't really help her too much.
So California primary didn't count because they didn't contribute to the candidate by the time we got to California.
And as far as the full faith and credit clause goes, it's just talking about how gay marriage was left up to the states to decide, and that it follows the faith and credit clause, which is that if something happens in one state, then it carries over to another state, should be followed, but that wasn't happening in the early 90s. Because Hawaii was the first state in the U.S. to say, hey, we want to allow gay marriage. And so some Hawaiian couples, when they would go to visit other states, they would be denied their marriage, which goes against the full faith and credit clause. I mean, I would say don't. And so his point with talking about the faith and credit clause here, as in a devil of devolution, is that it does not always work out well, like what happened in Hawaii, because it would be much better. It would be a much better issue handled for the federal government than having all of the states decide, because then there can come a conflict of faith and credit. And that kind of goes along with environmental regulation. That's more of something that needs to have a unitary law because it affects everybody. Like if there's smog in Oregon, it's going to come down to California. So even if we have our environmental protection law, they don't, we're still going to be affected. So it should be more of a federal issue. Same with the charter school systems, or no, corporate charging and legalized gambling. So basically, John Donahue's argument is you shouldn't devolve things to the state level because they are usually too big to do so, because they affect everyone in one manner or another. So do you guys feel comfortable with the federalism readings?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Then let us move on to the study guide for the civil liberties section. Yeah, civil liberties. So let us go over the definition, the concept here. Does anybody know what habeas corpus is?
Oh man, I did like an entire lecture on this.
Time to search your memories.
I have it.
Okay.
It's a court order demanding that an individual in custody be brought into the court and shown that the cause for detention areas of personal freedom constitutionally protected from government interference.
So, can you put that into your own words, Camille?
So it's basically saying that if you bring someone to court, you have to say why you brought them into court, instead of just like charging them for something that they don't even know what they're being charged for.
Yes, exactly. And that particularly has to do with imprisonment. To imprison someone, there must be charges against them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so, what are civil liberties? Emily?
So civil liberties are like liberties that shouldn't be messed with by the government. So like free speech, freedom of religion, the rights, like guaranteed rights along those lines.
Yeah. So like Emily said, it's their rights, their liberties that the government cannot take away from you, and that you are insured. And most of those we can see in the Bill of Rights. Okay. So, what is the Establishment Clause?
This law means that a wall of separation exists between church and state.
Yep, a separation of church and state. There shall be no church established within the United States of America.
Sorry, what page are we on?
We are on what chapter is Civil Liberties? Is it chapter 5?
It's chapter 4.
Chapter 4. No, this is We the People.
Yeah.
No, we're doing the Ginsburg. G.
Oh, okay. I got lost. I had the governing California open.
Oh, it's okay. So, have you found out where we are, Lotus?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay, cool.
114.
What page is it? 114?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the Free Exercise Clause?
It protects a citizen's right to practice any religion that they want.
Exactly. You can worship God, you can worship Allah, or you can worship the flying spaghetti monster. Whoever you want. And that is actually a real church. If you don't believe me, look it up.
Yep.
Robin. College student's prayer.
Actually, a really good place in house.
Is it the ramen and rice next to sushi though?
So good.
Okay, stop. Need to stop talking about food. I actually did have dinner. For once, I actually had dinner before this class, so I was. Normally I don't. And there was free pizza on campus, so. Okay, what's due process? Emily?
Due process is like the right of everyone to a fair trial with an unbiased judge and an unbiased jury.
Yep. And that's in the 6th, 7th, and part of the 8th Amendment. The due process.
Right to be free.
Right to trial and jury. What's the exclusionary rule?
It's the ability for courts to exclude evidence in a trial.
And reason why they might do that. Hey, wait! You guys are some of you are criminal justice majors, aren't you?
Yeah.
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 So what might be a reason why the courts might throw out some evidence?
Because it was maybe we didn't get a search warrant before we got the evidence itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of unfair, which is kind of ridiculous. But I mean, you know, some of the founding fathers were drunk. So, you know, Ben Franklin,
Timing. It's like
we're looking at you.
You gotta get permission to go into somebody's place.
Yeah.
So that's a constitutional protection for us against the police. And so what is the Miranda rule? Well, Betty's starting to say it, but she has herself muted, so you don't hear that. Emily can go now.
Okay. So that's like when, like on TV and stuff, when the police give you a rundown of your rights, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law, and you have a right to an attorney, all of that stuff.
That fun thing that we hear just the beginning snippet of all of our crime shows.
Yeah, so basically, I think what it was is that, I think it was Miranda was their last name, but I think what happened is, they were arrested and they weren't given their rights, and like, they, they said all this stuff probably, and, they're
Yeah.
upset.
Wasn't he Down syndrome?
Have an attorney.
What am I thinking of?
Like, Miranda was a person, so like.
Yeah, it was based off of someone, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to Google it now.
It's a court case that established it. It was
Yeah, it was
Miranda
like
v. Arizona or something like that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why, but he can't have Down syndrome.
I think it was Miranda v. Arizona.
Yeah.
Let me see.
And from my understanding, the issue was that he didn't realize that he had access to a lawyer and was just defending himself.
Yeah.
Even though that is something that the state is legally required to apply.
Yeah, one of those things is if you can't afford your own attorney, one will be provided to you. That's like one of the things that they're supposed to tell you.
Basically, like, rights that citizens have would be.
Yeah. And it's rights that are listed in the due process. So connect the Miranda rule and the due process together because they go along with very similar things. So what is eminent domain?
The right of the government to take private property for public use.
And they're required to pay you a equal sum of what your land is worth by doing so. And that's usually used for like national parks and stuff like that.
Along which has been vital individual access to property.
Are we ready to move on to right to privacy? Okay. Can somebody tell me what the right to privacy is?
It's the right to be left alone.
Which has been.
And is this in the Constitution or was this created because of elasticity in the Constitution?
I think it's because of elasticity
Mm-hmm.
of the Constitution.
Yeah. And so, in the case of Roe v. Wade, the abortion case, the right to privacy is kind of brought up and debated. So I would say if you want to know some more about that, then I would read up on that because that is one of the enduring debates. It's the Roe v. Wade case.
Okay.
sorry, I'm pulling up my study guide.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is Mr. Friedman ever going to use Top Hat?
What's Top Hat?
You just passed it up on your previous screen, I think. It said it's like for polling and attendance or something like that. Yeah, it's underneath the resources tab. I like made an account and stuff, and then I found out that it looks like he doesn't use it.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah, he doesn't take attendance, so
Yeah.
I think he doesn't really use it.
Yeah, because attendance is taken by your quizzes.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I saw that you are, well, at least on mine, this thing is on my
Oh, good.
it's on there now.
Yeah. Everything. All of you should have the SI class in your student center because today was the census deadline. So you're all added and you can't be dropped.
Wait, the what deadline?
The census deadline. So you can't drop or add anymore.
Okay.
Unless it's a dire circumstance where we need to go through all of the paperwork and copy it.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to do that.
Bye.
There's more questions on my study guide that I want to go over than on his. So could somebody identify the difference between civil liberties and civil rights?
I can't think of any examples for civil liberties, like in context to civil rights. I feel like liberties are like privileges and rights is more solid in law.
Yeah, so civil liberties are more so protections against from the government and everything, and like keeping the government from abusing. Well, it keeps the federal government or the state government from telling you what to do, basically, and how to live your life. While civil rights are things that are guaranteed to you by the government that should be insured by them.
Yeah.
So, rights granted by the government.
Yeah, essentially. Because when we talk more about civil rights, that's going to be talking more on like the 14th Amendment, which grants equal protection under the law for all citizens and equal treatment. Because that kind of comes into it. But I will stop myself from talking about that because that's next section. So, you guys feel kind of comfortable with this definition, the difference between civil liberties and civil rights?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can the government take away civil rights? No, they're both.
I mean, well, theoretically, they could take away those rights, but they would have to write an amendment into the Constitution that nullifies these rights that you have. Like, you know how in the 20s there was the Prohibition law that outlawed alcohol?
Oh, yeah.
That was repealed by the 21st Amendment. So technically, I mean, I guess theoretically, some if it could pass, they could repeal the First Amendment. But that takes, it takes a lot of congressional approval, which is really hard to get. And it's even more so than, like, I think it's more than 2/3. I'm not entirely sure. Because amendments happen so rarely to the Constitution. Okay, so we started, because you guys had the chapter and the online readings assigned to you. So, when you read the Christian fundamentalist bigotry raised at U.S. Air Force Academy, what did you think of that?
I feel like they need an overhaul and like supervision over there because that's just wrong.
Let's go back real quick. Let's first talk about what is the setting at this Air Force Academy. What's going on here, Emily?
Oh God, I don't even want to. Basically, the majority of people there are Christian, or they're like pressuring people to become Christian. And there's like, for example, there was like prayers on Sundays or something like that. And like the people who weren't Christian or who didn't want to participate in the prayers were marched back to their to their commons where they sleep and stuff. And it was called the heathen flight. Like they had a name for it. Like that's just one thing. And then like so there's like there's a man who had his son in that Air Force Academy, and he was Jewish. And like he's called a dirty Jew, and like they accused him of killing Jesus Christ, and like they had all these like somewhat required prayers like before dinner and like all kinds of crazy stuff. Like there was all sorts of wrong going on there, you know.
And
that kind of yanked my chain there. That makes me really angry.
Yeah, and so this is a U.S. government-funded institution. What's being established here?
Basically, they're allowing the discrimination of people, non-religious and differently religious people, and also they're like jamming Christianity like down these people's throats. Like literally, like if you like caved in and like even if you pretended that you're Christian and you like prayed and like joined their services and stuff, they would still treat you better. Even if you still believed in the flying spaghetti monster, if you pretended, they would treat you better. Like that's, you know what I mean? They're basically infringing on your constitutional right, freedom of religion, because if you're not an evangelical Christian, you know, we're gonna treat you differently, and we're gonna march you to your sleeping hall in the heathen fight, and you know, we're gonna harass you and call you names and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and so by doing this, they're establishing a Christian religion within the Air Force Academy.
And I believe it was stated that they would be really happy if just the whole academy, like the whole Air Force actually was evangelical Christian. Like that was they admitted that was kind of like their goal, that they would rather have the Air Force in the hands of evangelical Christians. But it was also stated that these Christians might not be afraid to like have literally like a nuclear like war or a holocaust of nuclear weapons, because they could see it as like, oh, it's the coming of days, like I can initiate like the end of days and I can be part of it. You know what I mean? Like not only would they like have less fear of it, they might be less afraid to initiate it in the first place. Like their inhibitions are a little lacking in that sense, I believe.
Yeah, and I think about evangelical Christianity in particular is that to be evangelical means that you spread the gospel and you work kind of more as a missionary. And so some of the people at the Air Force were arguing that they were just freely exercising their religion because part of their religion was to share it with others. even though it was clearly just an excuse to establish it within this government institution.
Well, there's a few religions that allow men to take several wives, and that's not allowed in the United States. So, I mean, you know, freedom of religion has its allowances, but there's a point where, sorry, you can't do that here, not in the United States. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't see people walking around with like 10 wives, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then that takes away from the free exercise of all the other religions, if there can only be one dominant religion.
Yeah.
So
I have a feeling, I'm sorry, I have a feeling that everybody else is like, yeah, I can't say anything because I'm Christian. Like, it's okay. Like, if you're in agreement with it, like, this article didn't really have like a certain bias. Like, if you're for it, then I mean, speak up. Like, let's hear the opinions fly. Like, this is what this is about, you know? Because if you're Christian and you agree with this, like, let's hear it. I mean, there's got to be a reason for this. I'm not an atheist. I'm like agnostic, I guess. Like, I don't know that side of the opinion. Like, let me hear it, you know?
yeah, it would, and it'll be interesting to see if tomorrow in class, if we have anybody speak up and kind of fight for the side of the evangelical Christians in the airport, rather than the majority of us who are on the sides, who are on the side of the soldiers in the academy.
Because I feel like too, like there is like a valid argument, like, oh, Christians are peaceful. You know, we just want to spread our religion. We're peaceful. Like, we don't want war. We just want,
Tell that
you
to
know,
the
like,
Crusades.
yeah, I know. I try to leave that alone because that makes people angry. But you know what I mean? There is a valid counter argument for that. So I mean, I just need to hear it.
Yeah, and it's about. I mean, I'm very happy to see that you're open to hear about it, because so many people don't want to hear other opinions and understand the other side. So that also makes you an informed voter as well, because you're trying to see all the sides.
I've had my mind changed more than one time. Trust me.
Hey, it's gonna happen many times over your lifetime. So it's 6:48. Do you guys have any other questions that we can answer in the last couple minutes?
No.
No.
Good question.
Good, Camille. Okay, good. All right. I guess we'll stop the session here if everybody's good.
Okay.
I will see you all either in the classroom on Tuesday or here on Wednesday. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.